Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's Training Industry Learning Tech Showcase, AI and Training, sponsored by Big Tin Can, CGS Immersive, Corporate Visions, Skooks, and the Regis Company. I'm Avery Vo, Events Manager at Training Industry, and I'm so happy you could join us today. Before we get started, I would just like to go over a few housekeeping items to help you interact with our speaker and get the most out of today's program. Throughout today's event, please feel free to use the chat for comments and submit questions in the Q&A panel. All questions will be addressed during the event or at the end of the program during our Q&A section. At the end of the event, you'll notice a short survey has popped open in your browser, and we'd appreciate your thoughts on today's event. And as always, all of our sessions are being recorded and will be archived on trainingindustry.com, and you will receive a follow-up email from us with a link to the on-demand sessions. If this is your first Training Industry event, a special welcome goes out to you. Training Industry exists to make connections among learning and development professionals. We offer tons of resources to support your role in L&D through live events like today's Learning Tech Showcase, as well as through articles on our website, our magazine, conferences, research reports, and our podcast. You can visit trainingindustry.com to learn more. And now, without further ado, it is my pleasure to introduce you to our speaker, Tim Riesterer, who is the Chief Strategy Officer of Corporate Visions. And Tim, we are super excited to have you here today. And with that, I'm going to hand it over to you.
All right. Thanks, Avery. Confirming you can see everything and hear everything.
Yep.
Awesome.
Great.
Thank you. All right, everybody. We have like 30 minutes, and I want to thank everybody for being here. I think this is a unique opportunity to talk about learning tech, but you're not going to get a demo today. I want to talk a little bit about impact, outcomes, and how to get there, and then we'll sort of back into the tech that's responsible. My area of specialty is in the area of developing commercial teams to create a more effective experience when they're in front of your customers, whoever they are, with their lips moving across the board, from business development through to customer success and everything in between. AI will do a lot of things to get them in front of more people more efficiently. But then they have to deliver. And I want to focus on that part of it today. So I want to give you specifically three, I'm going to call them unexpected learning tech opportunities or experiences for your teams today. Frankly, not everybody just needs more tech. They just need tech to do some things for them. So let's talk about it from that perspective. But my promise is, I think these are going to be unexpected learning tech for you because they're maybe non-traditional learning tech. So put your questions in chat as we go. I'm going to pause after each of the three big ideas and get any comments, questions, or feedback. So use it liberally and let's go. So the first question I have for you as people who are in the learning business is, ultimately what happens is your company's in business to win more customers. And the question I have for you is, do you know why you win or lose opportunities? It may sound pedantic, but it's really important to understand this in the long run, because if you don't get the buyer to say yes, all the things you do to get there don't matter. And so we believe in this idea of, let's understand from the buyer's perspective why you win and lose, because too many companies that we work with don't do that. They do maybe ask a couple dozen customers some things, but they don't do anything at scale. The only thing they do at scale is they ask the seller, hey, why did you win or why did you lose that deal? That's interesting. So you ask the person who is trying to win or lose the deal why they won or lost the deal, and you leave out the customer. And the problem with that is your data could be faulty. So if your goal is to improve your company's win rates, and you want to kind of learn how to do that by understanding why you win and lose, if you just ask your sellers why you win or lose, you have some suspect data, because you do not have the actual decision makers' inputs. So what I want to offer up today is an unexpected piece of tech per se that I think companies need to move to scale, is the idea of asking every customer, win, loss, or no decision, why they did or didn't make that decision, for or against you. Now, we have a database of over 150,000 B2B decisions. So if you today do not have win loss at scale, where you're learning why you win and lose and doing it at a level where you have some predictive validity to those findings, I'm going to do it for you today. But I want to encourage you to think about it for your own future, because I can tell you what we learned across these decisions in 50 different industries and 500 different companies. So there's a lot of data in here from a lot of sources. So we've now aggregated it, and I'm giving you sort of the findings of the collective whole. Here's why this is so important. Again, if your organization is trying to get more wins than losses, you want to understand why you win and lose. One place to start is really to understand why you lost. Because why you win, especially if you talk to your commercial teams, is going to be, well, we won because of me. Me with my lips moving. Yeah, sure, we have a good enough product, but everybody's got a good enough product, but it's me. Well, when you lose, it's funny because if you ask the sales team, 100% of the time they're going to be, hey, it was something outside my control. And they're going to say it was something wrong with the product. They're going to say it was something wrong with the price. They're going to say it was something wrong with the process. But that outside of my control is not true all the time. In fact, it's not even true half or the majority of the time. What we found in that database is that 53% of the time, the losing vendor could have won the deal if it wasn't for something they did or didn't do in the experience. And here's why I'm talking to learning leaders about this today is often when companies go and ask customers win-loss analysis, they're trying to find out how to improve the product and the product roadmap, or maybe how to improve your competitive position and positioning. But too often companies are not asking buyers about the experience they had with your commercial teams. And you're missing out on a huge piece of insight. I would argue the majority of the insight you need to improve your win rates is not locked up in products and pricing and competitive positioning. That's true 47% of the time, but the majority of why you win and lose is locked up in finding out from your customers why you lost, and then figuring out the things you could fix as people who are trying to train, coach, and enable your field representation. What we were able to find is really fascinating. I only have a few minutes to walk you through this, but this is science called area under the curve. So using AI, so this is where the AI part shows up. We were able to study these 150,000 deals, and area under the curve is perfectly predictable at 1.0. So what it says is from 0.91 to 73, think of it as 91% or 73% predictive of why a buyer will buy and what experiences matter. There are things below this. So 0.5 on AUC is basically a coin flip. Guess what? What we found in 150,000 deals is that product knowledge and industry knowledge and ease of facilitating a purchase are no better than a coin flip when it comes to predicting wins and losses in terms of how well you do in any of those areas. These 8 areas are the ones that are predictive of wins and losses, meaning a buyer can observe them, can score them, can give you feedback on them, and can compare you to the competition on these. And so what I think you have to accept here, at least generally from this data set that we have, is there are distinctly human skills that AI can't replace. AI can make you better at some of these things, but ultimately, you have to be good at creating these experiences in front of a customer. And if you're good at them, you win more. If you're bad at them, you lose. And so the opportunity inside your organization is to find out what are those predictive buyer experiences that are driving wins and losses for you. In light of you maybe not having win-loss at scale, I give you this list. And I think it's a pretty valuable place to start thinking about a competency framework, because most competency frameworks are sort of devised or divined in a room with a bunch of people with sticky notes, and you bring in some high performers, and everybody tries to think about why they might have won and why they might have lost and what they do and what they don't do. And the reality is people are pretty poor at being able to identify that in themselves and in terms of what actually correlates or drives cause and effect. Here you have 8 that do. So I give you that today as sort of the first unexpected learning tech opportunity, AI-driven tech opportunity, is consider win-loss feedback at scale. Integrating with your CRM system, kicking out a survey after every win, every loss, every no decision, collecting give or take 20 to 30% of every deal's outcomes, and then beginning to especially ask the right questions. I would argue use those 8 I just showed you as foundational questions and find out how your team is doing, not only in terms of your product and pricing and competitive positioning, but how your team is doing at creating or not creating a meaningfully differentiated experience. And this is a tool for learners that has gone under the radar. And it's the kind of insight that it ultimately can transform the way you think about upskilling and developing talent, is precisely knowing what you should be working on. So the second question I have for you, leading to the second piece of tech, but I'm going to check real quick, Avi. Are there any questions that might have came through on that I can answer?
Nothing just yet.
All right. Well, that's okay because I got a lot of, as we used to say, a lot of rubber to burn here. All right. So the second question that I have for you is, okay, now that you know, like, what matters, like, did you know that before, and did you guess at it, or were you certain? You can now be certain. There are those 8 particular competencies. Now the question is, do you know who needs what? Inside of most organizations that we run into, they have forms of assessments. Where those assessments came from and what they're based on, in some ways, I don't know. And the challenge with most of those assessments is they're also self-assessments. They're reflective assessments. The question is, can you isolate who needs what in a more effective, certain manner? So we believe it starts with understanding what it takes to create an experience, because if you're going to assess people, you should assess them on competencies that matter. So we take those 8, here's those 8 again, and recognize that there's a lot of things that you can do with AI to run a great engagement. But at some point, like I said, somebody's lips need to move and they need to create an experience. So these 8 matter, but now who is good at what and who needs what? What I say is you can't ask someone if they think they're good at math. They actually have to do math. And you can spread that idea across all kinds of different jobs and competency models, et cetera. The thing that's been missing in sales is a precise performative skills assessment. And that hadn't been possible without the power of AI. So the second unexpected AI tool I want to talk about today is the idea of actually having a performative sales skills assessment. Let's just call it like the ACT for sales, where now you have a psychometrically validated and calibrated based on performance and based on those 8 competencies and that data set of 150,000 pieces of buyer feedback to know what those competencies are and what the underlying skills are and what good or bad looks like. So now the data model under this thing is really potent compared to pretty much anything else you could find. And what you need to put on top of that then is a performative or demonstrative assessment tool that exposes those competencies and skills in an actual selling situation. And what we've been able to create with the help of our friend David Shacklet, who's at Harvard Skills Lab, where they were running they were running precision assessments against complex skill clusters like leadership and management. He went off to do this in sales, and we are partnered with him and have built and launched the only precision skills assessment that isolates skills in scenario-based situations, does role plays, customer conversations, and has challenges and quizzing, and has them demonstrate the actual skills in the context of running an actual sales cycle. So we've built a case, a repeatable case that all sellers can come up to speed on. And in the course of about 10 minutes each, they will run a micro simulation of the same deal, but that deal progressing through the decision cycle. And after 30 minutes, you will get a detailed report where the individual rep will see what competencies they are high performers, mid or low performers at, and the organization will get a look at the heat maps on how that might impact the way you do your training, isolating and identifying need. So I need you to just pause, take a second, take this in, don't panic. What you see here are not real names, but real data. This is an example of a region for a B2B company that we did this assessment on. And what you see are across the top are the 8 competencies. And what you see below are the heat maps of the organization in terms of those folks who performed well against that competency based on this assessment, because all 8 are measured in that assessment, and those who struggled and those who were kind of in between. And this is sort of magical for an organization now who thinks about maybe personalizing your learning journeys based on actual deficit or performance gaps to competency that isn't self-reflective or even manager self-reflective, but is based on actual performance. And you can start to map the cohorts that need some improvement. Maybe you want to cut that a little higher, need some improvement in these particular areas. But now it's specifically what areas do you have a deficit in? What cohort should you join? And it is about gap in performance, not I happen to be in this role, I happen to be in this geo, yada, yada, yada. This is much more informed on multiple levels, in probably in the most important level that I like to call the elimination of plausible deniability. Too often we provide one size fits all for some sort of justified reason, and people will take it because they're duty bound to take it, but they don't really apply themselves because they don't think it's for them. They may believe the company needs it, but they don't think they need it. This is an opportunity to show folks what you need, and based on not what you think you need, but what the performance shows you need. And now imagine having these cohorts identify for you against these and being able to intervene. And one of the things that I think is really interesting is now imagine if you had the manager take this and their team, and now you looked at the team and you said, wow, there's a whole bunch of people struggling on this particular competency. We know from the area under the curve measurement that aligned solutions to needs is the most predictive of wins. We need to get these folks up to speed. And then you usually put out some sort of training, and then you tell the manager, hey, manager, you need to help them. Well, here's the first interesting, not only the first, this is one of the more interesting findings. Allison can't help them. Deborah and Jennifer, they might be able to help them. And now all of a sudden you start to see opportunities to create mentoring and buddy coaching, and also opportunities to upskill managers to make sure they can do what they need to do as coaches. Let me point one other one out here where you look at what we found is on Allison's team, again, fake names, real data. That team struggled to be a creative negotiation partner, but we found that Allison was pretty solid at that. What does that tell you? Allison's probably shown up at the last minute doing all the negotiations, and the team is probably leaking value all throughout a deal, and Allison shows up at the end and tries to save it. And you can just start to identify opportunities to intervene where you couldn't before. AI could simulate and get people to a point of predictive performance reporting like this. So I know there's a lot of AI role play out there right now, but those things are maybe trained on a product. They might be trained on a specific sort of selling situation, but this is the only one that we've seen that's out there that can assess against a competency framework that is built on a buyer evidence-based data set that is then performative across an entire deal cycle that can give you this kind of insight. So think about it. Now, for that particular competency, you have the cohort in need, but you also have the cohort in plenty. And if Allison or other managers are struggling, you have opportunities to pair people up because now you know who can help in that area. Otherwise, mentoring and coaching has been an arbitrary ad hoc sort of effort on the part of learning. But now through the power of the AI assessment, you can precisely identify at the competency level who can help and who needs the help. So we see tremendous opportunity in this when you even think about the vision for personalized learning journeys. And it's been a dream that we would have personalized learning journeys because, again, we think we'd improve adoption, right? You'd improve usage and transformative change if the journey was relevant and rep or person specific. But there was just no way to get there in a meaningful way that was believable to the organization and to the individual themselves. And now look at this. If you think about Steven needs to work on creating a vision for change, the ability to articulate meaningful value, and being a creative negotiation partner. Whereas I got a picture over here. Jennifer needs to work on aligning solutions to needs, responding to concerns, resolving concerns responsively, and being a creative negotiation partner. I just need you to imagine now how this could transform the way that you determine who needs what training, who needs what coaching or enablement. If you knew this out of the gates, think about if you're hiring veteran salespeople, do they have what it takes for certain roles? Because now you know what roles have what heat maps. All kinds of interesting insights, including this one. And then I'll take another pause for a question before the third big idea. And that is, what we did is we took this cohort or this team and we got their win rates. So now we have their actual win rates, and we compared the upper quartile in terms of competency scores with the lower quartile of competency scores. So that's what you need to know. So we looked at, let's say, high and low scores on aligned solutions to needs, and then we compared it to their win rates. And there was very limited difference in the win rates between high and low scores in that competency. But for this team in this territory at this time who was struggling with their win rates, we were able to isolate 3 specific competencies where the high versus low performers saw the greatest disparity in win rates. And now you can begin to prioritize for that team the 3 things you need to work on and those 3 cohorts who need the most work. And you also know those people who can be their mentors. So the power of having a precision-based skills assessment that is actually performative, where you must do the work and it is calibrated to actual performance and all of this buyer data that we have about what good looks like and what's predictive of wins and losses is something extremely, I think, valuable and completely new and different. The idea, the unexpected learning tech that you probably haven't heard about yet, is the idea of a performative precision skills assessment based on a buyer evidence-backed competency framework. Let me pause there. Any questions that have come up, Avery, in the meantime, related to that?
Yeah, it looks like actually one just came in. And Shanae is asking what AI tools were used to gain these insights.
So that assessment is powered by AI micro assessments that drive each of those vignettes, and that is what's available is not the AI tool. What's available is the precision skills assessment that is powered by AI. So it's really being sold as an assessment tool and service, not as an individual tool to buy to build that assessment. Because what it took to create that assessment was also having access to the data set that we had and the buyer predictive buyer experiences and buyer evidence. And in order to get a validated, calibrated performance assessment like this, the volume of data you need to get there, most people could buy a tool and just never get there. And so what we did is, like I said, build sort of the ACT for sales. We build it so you didn't have to. And so that's an opportunity. So it's really available as an assessment tool that is already built. And then the analytics for your company come after your team takes those micro simulations.
Awesome. Thank you, Tim.
All right. So yeah, what you're going to hear from us is we're not a tech company demoing tech today. We are a content company who uses tech to provide a service. And so win-loss technology is available, but win-loss technology that doesn't know what to look for in the buyer experience and the seller experience means you got to figure it out. And our win-loss offer that to you is less about the tech and more about the content and intel inside. Our assessment is less about selling you an assessment tech tool and more about an assessment that has the intel and the validation and calibration already built inside So we're kind of unique in terms of the folks you might be hearing from today. We're not empty tech waiting for you to put something in it. We are a tech-enabled service, if you will. So the question then becomes, how do you scale the change? Last one, and get this in under the buzzer. What we're doing with companies right now is helping them achieve something they've always wanted, which is personalized learning journeys. So the assessment then sets up an opportunity to put people into specific cohorts based on their identified performance-based deficits. And we have been building out competency-based content as opposed to courseware. What that means is think of the competencies and then the respective skills that we have identified through our research that drive that competency in dedicated competency-focused kits, so that a learner can go and get just what they need for the thing that they're in deficit on and have research-backed evidence that they need it, and then research back content to remediate it, and then package that digital learning to knowledge transfer with virtual workshops where they can practice deal specific and competency specific application. And then you guys have heard a little bit about this already, and I'm sure you're going to hear more about it, is we're absolutely believers in the power of role plays driven by AI. So the real concept here is the idea of a personalized learning journey, but it lands very hard on this idea of the training, getting you into a place where you can now apply that training vis-a-vis a planner. You could take that planner to an AI role play. The AI role play can tell you how good your planner is and give you coaching and feedback on how to improve that planner. You then upload that planner to the role play. So these are all competency based. And now you practice that specific competency based on that set of skills and a rubric. And you've applied a planner that also has been pre-coached by the AI. So think about that for an experience relative to how you might scale that today. You couldn't scale this personalized learning journey or this practice or this proficiency with humans. But the power now is, you know, the competency gap, you now have content aligned to it, you now have the opportunity to train that, the opportunity to apply that, and the opportunity to practice that to a level of certified proficiency, because they can keep retrying. And that competency, you can demonstrate a level of proficiency on that competency. Moving forward, what we're doing with companies to sustain that is, we mentioned the mentor program, because now you know who they are because you have the assessments and you know who's good at that competency. The idea of having targeted competency-based boosters, having the ability to reassess, to measure how much progress they've made. But most exciting is what I would call the deal-specific coaching. The main thing that needs to happen is you now need to be great in the moment that you have to actually do it for an active deal. And what we are now applying is trained role plays, again, that are trained on the competency and the approaches, the framework, the conversations, where it will not only like review a planner, it will spit out a deal specific call planner. Like, what's this deal? Who are you calling on? What's the competitive environment? And it'll be like, here's your messaging that will position you best against that competitor and for that persona based on this particular call and the competencies required at this moment in the buying journey. So now you've spit out and been coached on building some actual call prompter content. And of course, you can then practice that call before you go do it. Now you can literally prescribe which persona at what company, and again, competitive set and all that, and actually pre-practice that call with that decision maker, now with the messaging and the skills to support that call competency. And again, retry until you feel comfortable or good at it. So for me, the unexpected learning tech number 3 isn't just about having AI role plays. It's now the possibility of doing personalized learning journeys at scale, and then personalized reinforcement at deal. literally in the deal moment, before never even thought possible. But it's all now an extension of the idea that you're going to know what the gaps are, where you win and where you lose. You're going to know who is good at those experiences and not good at those experiences. And then you're going to drive personalized learning journeys to get those people up to speed. And now you have an opportunity to draw a direct line between the learning intervention and the outcomes on the backside because of how precise you've been able to be from the beginning to the end. So, Avery, I'm going to leave it at that. I think with 1 minute to spare, I'm going to offer this. This is a deeper dive on the data and the example I shared on the assessment piece, and the possibilities for you to think about an integrated competency framework and precision assessment to then help find out what and where your teams need help, and how you can align your content to provide a personalized learning experience for greater impact. All
I
right.
love it. Awesome job, Tim. This has been a really wonderful presentation, and I know we are unfortunately out of time, but we'll be sure if any questions that came through that we didn't get an opportunity to address, we'll share those with Tim and his team so they can touch base with you all. And yeah, thanks again, Tim, for your time today. It's been super wonderful, and we will
Thanks,
be
everybody.
taking about a 15-minute break, and up next, we have Justin Hill joining us from Big Tin Can for their session, Take Your Team Pro, introducing Genie AI Pro. So in just a moment, I will end this session, and you can join our next session by returning to the event lobby and going to the session tab. And yeah, I hope you all stick around for the rest of the event. And thanks again, Tim. It's been a pleasure, and we'll see you soon.